Read that. Look at Instagram. I'll be back. Time to wake up, kids. Got a seminar to do. Malcolm X, Juniors, YouTube. If you're a junior, you should be on YouTube getting ready for the first ever online seminar. Got all kinds of stuff going on here. See? Hello, hello. Maybe wondering why I'm in the garage sitting by my Camaro. It's because I can sit by my Camaro. It's very nice out here. Brewed a little coffee. Got the computer set up. Let's get on YouTube and get everything ready. Remember this? It's the way we're going to do it. I know I could use Zoom. I got some information on how to use Zoom, but my old brain can only handle so many new things at once. So we're going to try this today. I'm going to practice on Zoom over spring break because we spend more time doing this. But if you can, open up an email so that as we're talking, you can jot down some things and just send it to me at the end. And we'll do our best. Should be a bit of a what is that? I'm reading a question about a bucket. Just ignore the bucket. All right? Let's get started, shall we? Get all this stuff out of the way. All right, I'm going straight to YouTube now. You can only do so many things at once. There we go. Sure, we got there. Now I'll see you on YouTube. All right, let's give it a try. The Camaro is not holding me hostage. Thank you. Gracie said she fell asleep 6 hours ago. All right. No hot dogs in the bucket. That's a work bucket. Come on, right? Courtney, I don't know what Renegade is. Emerson, if you went to bed at 5 a.m. because you were still doing your Malcolm X, you are a bad student because you had 2 weeks to do it. Yeah, the garage is a little messy. Yes. There's no hand in the bucket, Jenna. All right. What? Oh, Troy, it said basically I want you to send an email about what's going on here today. What's the hat? I've always wanted to wear a fedora. And since we're talking about the 50s, the 60s, Malcolm X, the fedora. What do you think? Should I wear it to school? Logan says nice fedora. Savannah, so you redeemed yourself there. Yes, they are jealous of the hat. Blue Strawberry. Thought we talked about those names. It's actually Mr. Jacobs' hat. He just doesn't have the clout to wear it. Maddie, you have no dress code, just me. All right, shall we get started? Savannah, you said you went to, wait a minute, did I mess up? Did you say you went to sleep at 5 in the morning doing Malcolm? Oh, no, sorry, that was Emerson, my bad. Emerson's the bad one. Sorry, Savannah. All right, yeah, Savannah's a good student. Emerson, not so good. All right, so as you can see, we're ready to go here. I asked you yesterday, and I hope you've enjoyed some of the zany videos. Got some looks yesterday on the railroad tracks, some looks. And not too far later, the police did ride by and give me a look. But yes, Emily, I wanted you to email. No, not the packet. No, on the Great Migration. Just you can even take a picture if you did it. I had a few questions about. Some students said they did it on just on the packet. Could they take a picture? Pictures are fine. All right, pretty open-minded here on how do we deal with things. All right, Jacob, very negative today. Why? What's up? Let us know here. Okay. All right. So, firstly, you guys, if you chime in, maybe take some notes. Again, I'm looking for just very loose things that were discussed while we're here. Email them to me. It's very casual. We're just doing our best to maintain some semblance of school here. All right. We're finished with Malcolm. Okay. Jacob, what's wrong? You sick? Logan says Malcolm X hated women. Don't we all, Logan? Don't let the women know. Oh, wait, I shouldn't have said that here. I mean, that's terrible. Terrible. I don't think Logan does. Why? Well, let's start with women since Logan brought it up, and we wanted to talk about just anything. Why? Why do you think he had such animosity towards women? Logan, could you care to expound upon that? Jaylen's on to something. She says, I think Malcolm hated the way women treated themselves. Well, remember one thing. When I'm reading David and Courtney, okay. Jenna said it, not me. Question from me to you guys. Can you read what I'm reading? Can you see what others are saying? Like Jenna said, Malcolm is a misogynist ass. Could you see that? Can we see those comments? Let me know. All right, awesome. Thank you, Courtney. All right, so I don't need to read all that. One, remember when it comes to women's rights in the 50s and the 40s and the 30s, because you're doing Malcolm X when he is in the Harlem Renaissance, like the glare. And women, not much on the rights, right? They just got the right to vote. There was an old saying that the rule of thumb, and allegedly, and read it many times, that as long as you hit your wife with something smaller than the diameter of your thumb, you were okay. So obviously those days are past, and women did not have the right. They could not really file for divorce unless under extenuating circumstances. So there was I think part of his viewpoints of women has quite a bit to do with the time period that he lived in. There was no such thing as women's lib in the 1930s, right? If you read the rest of the book, you would see at the end he becomes an ardent defender of his wife and his daughters. Much more different after he went to Mecca, but we didn't read that part of the book. The stuff with the prostitutes, I believe, from what I understand of him, he did not like the fact that these women were selling themselves. He especially did not wanted to, because of the way women were treated and black women treated themselves. He wanted them in the way black men were treating black women. He became very defensive of it, and he morphs. And I think that's why I did the video the other day. It was not thanks why about dynamic characters. Malcolm X is one of the most dynamic people that I have read, and many people, many of your teachers who've read Malcolm X will tell you the same things. The amount of changes that Malcolm X went through from his early days as a a young kid smoking pot and getting into trouble and doing crime to the leader that he became later in life is quite an amazing change, and all of that is sort of laid out in the book, which you guys could read. I'm just reading some of those. You guys can continue to read some. I would tell you some of the stuff in prison is quite fascinating, and his trip to Mecca is quite fascinating. And at the end, but time is against us on that. All right. So what I wanted to do is some of the things, some of the maybe the social changes. Obviously, one of the social changes that we can talk about and have been is the fact that women, the view of women is vastly different. Women holding jobs, the way women are viewed in our society. Kayla's talking here. Kayla, he is a very angry person, and why wouldn't he be? Right? Think about the parts that you've read. He has. He would be angry. His loss of his father, the loss of his mother, the loss of his family. Okay, the treatment that he got at school, and then of course some of the other anger is the scenario in which he is very resentful to what he calls the middle class blacks. He uses the antiquated word Negro, but he's very angry about them also, and which is fascinating. And what he's mad about is that that group of people who ostensibly are domestics, or they basically work for upper class white people. So they would be working in a bank, and he even makes fun of it. He says they will say my husband's into banking, and then you find out he's a janitor at a bank, but he makes decent money compared to everybody else. So he really didn't like that. He looked at them as sellouts, and that's why I asked you to look up the word Uncle Tom, which everybody that turned in got the fact that it came from Uncle Tom's Cabin. But it today is a very hostile and demeaning term that is used against African Americans who feel like they're being too sort of subservient. And you'll hear it today sometimes in politics. It's a very harsh criticism, even though the book was not intended to be that way. Yes, Emily, that is right. And again, Emily's point here, he's very critical of people selling out to whites, and yet he conked his hair. And that just shows you how complicated. It was one of the questions I wanted you to just the complexity of race relations. This was on the COVID page, and social perceptions, right? How difficult it is to understand your place. Logan, behave. I have an Uncle Tom, and he lives in Colorado. How oftentimes we do things because everyone in society is doing it, and you don't realize it. Malcolm X conks his hair because that's what everybody was doing. But remember that when Malcolm X is writing this book, or having Alex Haley write this book, he's writing it from a perspective of a man who is much older, much more mature, much more educated, and he realizes that by conking his hair, he was making his hair straight like the white community. And he's very resentful of that. But he was very resentful of the blacks that he saw early on. But again, that resentment comes as he's reflecting back. He didn't have that resentment, so to speak, as a young man. As a young man, he was just a mischievous, wild child, basically. Yes, very good, Vanessa. That's right. Yeah, Julia is correct. Again, They didn't get it. Here's something interesting. First year we taught this, I had several African American girls in my class, all of which who straightened their hair. And when they read this as attempting to look white, these girls took offense to that because they said, we don't straighten our hair because we're trying to have white hair. We straighten our hair because we want it straight, period. And so, again, that's the difference between 2000 and what was then 2015 versus today, or then, which is in the 1930s. Okay. But again, it's just the style. They don't, you guys do things that you don't think about. I mean, and you see more than just you guys doing things. They don't think about it. Society is doing it. Very good. You guys are all good on that part. Any of women can even get outside of that. You guys aren't old enough to see. Yes, Gabrielle, you are right. You guys see or are too young to see just how much, say, changes have occurred in recent years in the gay community, the same-sex couples and all that. When I started teaching, that was still taboo, and within the last basically 10 years, all of that has disappeared. And what will happen to you? What will happen to you is you'll watch things that are older from the 80s and the 70s, and you'll see some of the comments about the gay community, and you'll be horrified by it. But I can tell you, as growing up in the 80s, when those things were said, most people didn't think anything about it. And today, when you watch these things, they're very uncomfortable. And that's why I posted to you that video that you guys watched, the Lindy Hoppers, where you saw all the African American domestics hearing the music and then coming running and performing. And today, 80 years on, that is almost a wretched thing to watch. But it was not meant when it was made to be derogatory. Those were professional singers and dancers that toured around and were in movies, stuff like that. But years on, it does not have the same feel because society changes. Society changes with humor, with what they think is funny. Society changes with how we view certain ethnic groups. Okay. The other book that we used to do that we won't get to this year because of everything is Angela's Ashes, and you can see we did it originally because of how bad. Yes, Emily, the Lindy Hopping video that I had you watch was not bad when it was made. It was made sort of to embrace the dance, the music of the culture. But when we watch it today, it does not look very good. In fact, if we were in class, and maybe I can look it up, I'll show you the Lindy Hopping that was done in the Malcolm X movie. A movie which, with your extended time off, I would encourage you guys to watch. It's phenomenal. The Denzel Washington plays Malcolm X, and I can tell you that Denzel Washington plays Malcolm X better than Malcolm X was Malcolm X, but that shouldn't be really a surprise. It's a wonderful movie, and the Lindy Hopping in that has a completely different feel to it. It's the same dancing, but it doesn't look derogatory. It looks celebrated, but that's because the movie was made 50 years later. Into the Wild is next, Julia. We'll start it after break. I'm reading. Hold on, Emily, you disappeared. I'm coming back to you on that. Thought it was still embraced the culture. Emily, it was historically they were celebrating it. They were being as nice about it as possible. Just today probably had that feel of, I mean, if you watch the beginning, I think it was the black men are cleaning and they accidentally walk across the instruments and they cannot resist them. And they start touching them and they start playing and everybody quits and forgets their job to do because they can't resist singing and dancing. That is, by today's standards, is more than slightly racist. But at the time, I don't probably no one ever even thought about it. Very good question. Ronnie, thank you. Yes, Malcolm is darn good. what we got here about Warhorse there? Hey. All right, we got some oh, Peter, a free book with no work to do? Please. It's on the website already. Yeah, I gave you guys that before we left. Coming back to Vanessa here. So going to Emerson and Vanessa, that Uncle Tommen is when they would live up to the stereotypes. The scene I think I pointed out in the video was about maybe it was a certain amount of time in, maybe 5 minutes in or something, where the I think the guy's playing the piano. His eyes are wide open, his mouth is wide open. He's Uncle Tommen, and Malcolm talks about when he was shining shoes, he was taught that the more you Uncle Tom for the white customers, the more of a tip you'll get, and it's very demeaning. But they would do that to play that up. Let's see here. Jalen, good example here about the people you hang out with shaping you, and again, just look when he goes and lives with his aunt. His aunt was trying to have a good influence on him. He got the job at the soda fountain on the corner store. Was hanging out with a good-natured girl, a religious girl, and had he settled down, probably would have had a much different life. So yes, that's pretty much why your parents are always wondering and worried about who you're hanging out with. Very good. The any other societal things that yes, Sam, I think you're right. It was his half sister. Thank you. How about the complexity of race? Some of the things we've touched on a little bit. The complexity that how we view one another is very complicated. Today, we as a culture, we're very hypersensitive about whether stuff that we say to one another is considered racist. And things can easily be construed, right, Peter? Jesse is correct. Why she let him begin to wonder the way he did. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe she thought she was giving him freedom. Nick, I'm coming back to that question. Thank you. Sometimes we don't make good parenting decisions. Maybe she felt like she didn't want to hold him back like society did. There's a million. We don't have any of her perspective. That would be conjecture, but a good question. Nick asked, "Is it white society's fault that Malcolm fell into crime?" Well, boy, you write a book on that. One, why would he be resistant to? First of all, society he grew up in was a white society. What did the white society do to him? One, it took his last name, right? His name was Malcolm Little. That is not the name that he got. In fact, one of the guy who wrote the book, Alex Haley, wrote Roots, and the big book in that is the slave's name is Toby, I think, but he always wants to go by Kunta Kinte, which was his African name. And they take that away from him, and they beat it away from him. So that's the whole reason why a lot of these Muslims in Malcolm X's time always got rid of their last name and put X. Malcolm X is not the only one. He went to a congregation with many people who said X is a last name. Now, David, I'll come back to you. Okay. You have a white society, and in that white society, it allows and does not stop the Klan from doing the very things that it does to Malcolm's father. Okay, if that happened today, almost all of society would be uproarious in stopping that kind of activity. Back then, a blind eye unfortunately was turned. So, one, that causes him to be resentful. Two, he even says the Northern liberal government establishment did more harm to his family than anybody, and they split up the family. So he's got two types of resentment for destroying his family. And of course, when you hate everything that is authority on you, it causes you to rebel. That rebellion into him was a life of crime. And of course, if you remember, he gets arrested. He and his black friend, the two white girls get scolded and humiliated in court. The two black guys get sent to prison. So I wouldn't say it's 100% his fault because there's plenty of people who did not commit crimes from that era, but definitely a contributing factor. Even in today's mindset, today with the young man from Ferguson, Missouri, that ended up being shot by police that caused much of the Brown. I can't remember his first name offhand. You make that argument. His actions caused him to be shot by the police, but how much of his actions were brought upon the neighborhood that he brought up in and all the circumstances around him that made him such an angry person, from what I understand and what I read of the circumstances. So we are a product of our circumstances. You guys are smart. You guys get that. Moving on from that, African Americans behave differently in Lansing, Boston, and Harlem. Very good. That's a great question. That still goes on today. You go from Cincinnati and you go to New York City, and you're going to think you went to a different planet. Okay. We live in the Midwest. Lansing, Michigan is the Midwest. It's right above us. Okay. And so they have different mentalities. Boston had that rich area, the Roxbury. It was kind of wealthy area, but Harlem was where everyone was. It was the Disney World. It was the Vegas of African American community. They were flocking there. They felt much more liberated there because they really controlled the whole area. And so that is. You need me? All right. You want to come join in this party? Yeah. Yeah, get that answer. We're talking about Malcolm X.
Who's that?
Who's that? It's all these students here. They're all on the side here. All right. It's my son, Dominic, who has not conked his hair. No, not one bit. So get going on with Destiny. Destiny, you are correct. There is anytime if you have a terrible experience in school your whole life, and when you get older and you have kids, you're not going to trust the school, the teachers, or anything else. If you have a good experience in school, and guess I'm moving over. So, have you read Malcolm X?
No, because I'm not in a dumb class.
Oh, how about that? That's great. There, sit on that.
Let me get my computer.
Said he hasn't read Malcolm X because he's not in a dumb class. That's wonderful. Yeah, if you have a good experience in school, you're going to have a positive reflection of teachers. Okay. If you have a terrible experience in school, you're going to have a negative, right? And David, I hope I addressed that well. It's culturally different. Go to Tennessee, go to Georgia, see the difference in the way the people act with one another. It's an awesome aspect of our country in many ways, and how different we are, but we all coalesce. But we definitely get along better today, I think, than probably 100 years ago. Yeah, Emily, no doubt that kind of shenanigans is something definitely to make someone resentful, and never do anything to have a positive to rebel against that. Vanessa. Vanessa, I don't think. Yes, Logan's my son. he wanted to join in. He's bored, and he's also the one who filmed the famous shower scene. Right? It's my sidekick. You can say we look alike. All right, just lean in here. Yeah, see, you can barely tell us apart. You know, our hair. Oh wow, that's and now my hair is exposed. Vanessa, the fact that he, I want to be careful, I guess. The fact that he goes along with school and becomes class president and all that, I wouldn't classify that necessarily as Uncle Tomming, but I could see where critics of his would at the time. Sometimes it can be used kind of like today. We say in school, if we don't tend to like what happens or what someone says to us, we overly classify it as being as bullying. When you're a lot of times you're like, no, that's not bullying. That's just me saying that because I wanted to express myself. Sometimes these things get overused. We overuse it calling things terror. We overuse it when we say things are racist. Sometimes we overuse it when we say things are bullying. And I think in that case, that could be viewed as also being overused. But a very good question. All right.
I'm getting more comments than you.
What do you mean you're getting more? Oh, okay. Well, Logan, you just keep. You want care to answer that? How you got your hair like that? Just keep letting it grow and keep picking it. Right? I tried picking mine, but it didn't work. Right?
You're old.
As he said, it's because I'm old. So Honandi is asking if Malcolm was a hypocrite then. Um, he spends a lot of time talking about the fact that African American men would chase white women for status among the black community. It would highly irritate as when he became older and dedicated to his family. He's ashamed of that because he views it as the fact that white society made him hate black society and does not view black as beautiful. Therefore, the men were only attracted to the white women, or men were attracted to white women for that reason. And so he's very resentful of that later on. He's ashamed of it. He's definitely, that whole chapter about Laura is quite resentful. I think I used the word mea culpa about that. Today, you don't live in that society. Most of you look around the women who are valued as being beautiful. You start naming off beautiful women. When you start naming them off, or you're going to get a wide variety. Beyonce being at the top of that list, or any other actress, but they're in the spotlight, and so people see them, and so he definitely felt like he was a hypocrite. Oh, geez. Do you have hair dye? Peter says my hair is turning gray.
It is.
Where?
All over the place.
That's the light. It's no gray, Peter. Peter, who has a C in class now.
When he's in a class with you, I wonder why.
Oh, sorry, Sam. Yeah. That is right. When I was at your age in high school, for instance, you're talking about the early 80s, mid 80s, all the like Barbie dolls were almost all exclusively white, and they were all the same size, right? We've seen that change. We have had we have had that change, and then of course when it comes to, I think Whitney Houston was one of the first sort of mainstream prominent uh, pop singers, and then today you guys don't even notice it, especially with actors and actresses. Okay, Ronnie, about Marcus Garvey. He was popular. Thank you. Cover up my gray hair. Dyeing that later today. Sure, there's plenty of hair dye at the grocery store. The Marcus Garvey was popular. In fact, in the 60s, there was a giant movement to go back to Africa. And many of these leaders actually went back to Africa and found out that they didn't belong there either, as in like the culture was totally different. And Maya Angelou was in that group. She lived in Africa for a while. And I've read several of them. They went to Africa, felt just as disconnected there as they did in America. And, there's a lot of the writings that are from that. It's a good point. Let's back up here a second. Callan is absolutely correct. Yeah. And that's one of the things it's one of the things that makes it quite unique is you're seeing, he's reflecting, he's not celebrating his past. He's looking back on his past with a bit of anger and a bit of shame and a bit of embarrassment of his lack of intelligence, right? Is this for me?
No.
What am I supposed to do with this? I'm leaving the things that happen at this house.
This is hot.
No, it's not house anymore.
This is hot.
All right. So we have been on here for 36 minutes. I certainly won't want to keep you here beyond any class time. Are there any last questions that we can sum up for this? Okay. For instance, anything about the book in general?
Yeah.
You like that coffee, huh?
It's cold.
I told you it was cold. Anything about race relations then or now, the societal changes we've seen in the last 80 years? No, he does not like the coffee. Yes, Jesse, all the guys here agree with you, right? Yeah, yes, that's one great major change. Courtney would like you to ask them a question. She would like you to.
What race are you? What is that supposed to mean?
Where's that question?
Right there.
Bryce, you asking me or him? Bryce, you're not even in this class anymore.
I'm 15.
Yeah, he's 15. Omar, difference between a biography and autobiography. This book is in limbo, right? Biography is when I write a book about another historical figure. I'll interview that historical figure if they're still living, or I'll read all their biographies and then write it. An autobiography is I wrote it myself. This is in between because Malcolm X is sneaking into Alex Haley's house, telling him everything, and Alex Haley's kind of dictating it. So it's kind of a hybrid. Simmons Jr., do you use women? I want to answer that question for you now. No, or his dad would kill him.
No, I've had 3 girlfriends.
Okay, 3 girlfriends does not mean you're mean to girls, though. It just means that. And what was that?
One was black.
I don't know what that. He said I had 3 girlfriends and one was black. He said it. I don't know what that means. I will say this. Not sure if, and I don't think Malcolm X would have seen this sort of family dynamic. What am I hitting?
Hit the whoa.
Hitting the whoa. What does that mean? What is it? That? Did I do that right? Huh? No, not 3 girlfriends at the same time.
I wish.
He says he wishes. Okay, he and I will be having a talk, ladies. I'll deal with that in a minute. Thomas, what do you have to do for AP 12? Send it to me and I'll do my best as long as it's good.
Who cares about my sisters?
Oh, Jenna, the one is Donnelly. She's 22, and I have another 14-year-old whose name is Kaylee, which is Irish spelling Ceili.
Stole my name
Kaylee.
because of you.
which is odd because Kaylee's not Irish. Turns
Stole
out
my
that
name because
he's-
of you.
yeah,
She
anyway.
stole my name.
What is a gamer? Is that like video games? If it's a video games, he likes to play video games. I'm not a gamer. Keegan, I assigned your English homework. I'm not doing
He
it.
said, do it. Do it. You won't.
Emily asked, why did Malcolm sneak into Alex Haley's house? Because at the end of his life, a fatwa had been put out on Malcolm X's life to kill him for leaving the church of or the Mosque of Islam that he started, right? And when he left that and condemned his earlier teachings, they put a hit out on him to kill him. Malcolm X wanted his story told before he was assassinated, and he barely got the story done before he was brutally gunned down in front of his wife and kids. Unfortunately, it's all in the movie. The movie does a fantastic job of.
I was going to ask you. Oh, yeah.
What's that?
There's one of your people in this class. The guy on YouTube, his name is Bend Over.
The movie, I would say, Ava, look on any of your streaming sites. I can't. It's an older movie, so it shouldn't be hard to find at all. Like I said, it does a fantastic job with it. It's Spike Lee's It's a movie that one of the first movies that made Spike Lee the great movie director that he is. You saw what we did to that. We burned it,
Bend
right?
Over?
Yeah.
My friend used that in his class and he got in trouble.
No, Philip, I don't believe so. It was put out, and it's been a widely read book ever since it's been published. Let's see this militant. If I had these, would I be cool?
You're not even cool wearing that.
But if I had this earring, this is an earring, right?
No, it's not an earring. You're stupid.
Yeah, Malcolm X, Zane, thank you. Began militant, had an epiphany, and then, turned into more of the
That is my dad's girlfriend.
Anyway, Malcolm X was more aligned with Farrakhan early on and Martin Luther King at the end. I have videos of Malcolm X making fun of Martin Luther King. They're on YouTube. You can find any kinds of videos
I make
of.
fun of you?
No, Malcolm X does not make fun of me.
No, I do. Because I'm black and Martin Luther King Jr. was black and you're white. I'm guessing whoever you're talking about was white. So therefore.
They were both black, son. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King were both black.
Oh. Making fun of each
Malcolm
other?
X was.
So isn't that racist?
I guess if two black guys make fun of one another, it's just mean. The things we have to teach around
So
here.
me and my friend Evan are like.
All right, it is 44 minutes in. Anything last thing before we get out of here? I want you guys to send me an email with just some things that happened today, and I got everybody's name here. I think it's saved, so I can give you guys
Big
credit for
fella.
being here. All right.
Who's big fella? Yeah, tell him about your girlfriend.
Sorry, Courtney. I didn't bag the Soma because I was doing a live Instagram to let everybody know it was time to get. No, Jen, I'm not telling you about my girlfriend.
another
I'm
girlfriend.
not telling you about my girlfriend.
You look more like him.
All right, I'm out of here. Once we start talking about that, I'm gone. No, what?
Talk about your girlfriend.
I'm not talking
Yes,
about.
you are. You said it was a friend from Lauren.
No, not talking about that.
Yes, you are.
No.
Yeah. You're a
Nobody-
teacher. You're not a good teacher if you don't. Look at your glasses.
Oh, you go ahead.
Look at your glasses.
Hold on. Hold on.
You gonna tell him the time that you threw a dresser out the window?
That's as far as we're going there. All right. She found those Instagram videos very fascinating from Christmas. All right, I am out of here.
That's the only
You guys
cute
did a
picture.
great job. Send me an email, and since they're about short
I
a
have a
few
friend
students,
named
they're going to be out of luck on our casual conversation.
Is anyone
Alright.
in your class that's failing?
All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Be good.
You're welcome. I ruined that for you. Here you go.
No, you actually did. You actually did.